Hello, ma'am. I welcome you to my podcast. I'm really thankful that you gave me time to come for this podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I haven't sat on the side of the seat before, so I'm not sure if it's going to go all right, but yeah.
So, for the audience, please just tell them who you are and what is a PhD hard talk for which which is your brand.
Okay, so my name is Noma Mguni. I am a PhD student. PhD Hard Talk was born when I started my PhD. That was 2021. And on PhD Hard Talk, I have different guests from different disciplines. So I've learned about seaweed. I've learned about cancer. I've learned about bacteria that causes STDs. I've learned about everything, literally. And today I learned about weeds that grow in the soil and how they affect plants. That was interesting. So yeah, that is me. I speak, I write, I've worked in HR. I'm an employment mentor. And at the moment, I'm also working on helping BAME groups to get into employment. That's ethnic minorities within the UK. So that's like my title. It's quite long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how did you got the name PhD Hard Talk? Means what you wanted when you chose this name, and what was your motive behind this?
Okay. So there's a show called Hard Talk. They might sue me. So it's on BBC. And actually Al Jazeera has Hard Talk as well. It's quite similar in terms of the format. I thought to myself, if I'm a scientist and, which is quite similar to a politician, really, you can't really explain everything because someone can steal your ideas. So you have to be able to navigate through in that sense. And except for if you've published it, then definitely you can share so much. So had that thought and then thought of, okay, PhD and hard talk, but then how does postdoc go into that? So to call it research hard talk, I thought it doesn't land. It doesn't have that feeling. So I decided that PhD sounds so much better because it's scientific and it's a global term that everybody thinks, oh my gosh, you're doing a PhD. That's amazing. So hence why it's called PhD Hard Talk.
So what are you trying to do through PhD Hard Talk?
So number one is to unite knowledge with the communities in which we conduct our research. So for example, there's a young lady that I spoke to and she's from the wealthy side of the northern part of India. However, her research is in Kashmir. I hope I've said that right because she taught me how to pronounce that. Kashmir, and she's looking at the indigenous people and the challenges that they face, be it day-to-day education, etc. And she's from a wealthy side and she wanted to share her knowledge and work with them in terms of ethnographic research. So my job basically is to ensure that the communities, if they've got Wi-Fi, they've got access, they can understand that, as scientists, we work within the communities to make it better, not to disrupt their ways of day-to-day in terms of living, or be it work, education. We're there to help, essentially. So that's like the main drive, which is knowledge sharing. And the second one is for us as researchers as well. You go to conferences and you meet individuals, but now there's hopefully with PhD Hard Talk, you can now type on the internet, say, oh, I like the sound of that. Maybe we can collaborate and write a paper together. So then it's easy to find that person on LinkedIn or on Twitter, have a conversation and hopefully write something amazing if the research is quite similar. So that's like my thought process. And then finally, in terms of dissemination, as you know,
Mm.
You'll be asked, so how are you going to disseminate your research? So I
Mm.
thought to myself, right, so if I'm going to type something and put it on the internet as a publication, or my work will be stuck in the library, how am I actually sharing it? The
Mm.
quickest way is technology.
Mm.
Now, I can have an app where people can log in, but really it wouldn't touch everybody. If
Mm.
I've got a YouTube, Netflix, Amazon,
Mm.
hear me, people have access to that knowledge, and
Mm.
younger kids have something to live up to. I know there's so
Mm.
much entertainment there, hence why I say it's all about entertainment and education. So
Mm.
you've got access. The scientists themselves, they're now disseminating their work
Mm.
easily.
Mm.
It's flowing, it's there, it's got jokes, it's got seriousness, it's got data, and we challenge each other during the discussions as well. So that's the third aim in terms of project dissemination to the world.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So as you talked about, like you are trying to put an entertainment in the PhD, right? So why and how? Both are my questions. Like many of us think, like I have met some of the people who have been doing so many things along with their PhD. Like I met the founder of PhDs of India, Payal Das. She is a dancer along with her PhD. She likes to dance and perform. So what is like what how you try to put that entertainment in PhD?
So in terms of entertainment, you can tell I have a personality for days. So what I try and do when I have a discussion is to ask questions that necessarily a scientist wouldn't ask. So I come in as somebody who has no scientific background. So I try and have
Mm.
jokes, but also on Instagram and TikTok, which is like my playground, that's where you find most of the entertainment. I come in with education, a fun fact,
Mm.
but I will act it out and translate it in a very banterish manner. So
Mm.
anybody can relate and they can
Mm.
understand that, you can have fun in
Mm.
research. It's not serious, all scientists, oh, look at me. You
Mm.
know, you can have so much fun. And also some of the facts that I do share on TikTok, usually the background video, I'm like twerking. Oh, no, I'm lying. I don't twerk. I can't twerk. But I'm literally miming a song and, or doing some actions that are quite funny or dramatic in terms of imposter syndrome. And I'll have a video whereby one of my colleagues who's come on PhD Hard Talk will explain, what to do, what not to do if you're suffering from imposter syndrome. So the juxtapositioning of both actions and the
Mm.
reality, the knowledge sharing does help to push the entertainment and also the educative side, if that makes sense. So that's what I do. Whether that's entertaining to everybody, I don't know, but I think it's entertaining. Have you seen them, my videos?
We don't have TikTok here in India. It's banned here. Yes,
Oh,
TikTok is.
okay, I'll share with you.
Oh, thanks so much. So, okay, you made me forget what I was going to ask. Okay, so if you have to explain imposter syndrome to somebody who's totally new, who doesn't know
Mhm.
anything about it, so how will you do
Okay. The way I would explain it is when I first started my research, I was excited. I'm still excited, by the way. However, with each um, piece of work that I do scribe, I have moments whereby I second guess my knowledge and I second guess myself and I feel like I'm in the wrong place. Surely I shouldn't be doing a PhD. This is too, it's too much. Like it's for intelligent people. I'm not intelligent. And that's how it starts, in terms of imposter syndrome. And it affects your mental health as well, because if you get any feedback from your supervisor, and for example, they put red in everything, before you read, you react and you just feel like crap. And that affects your self-esteem, your confidence, and also your writing. So you have anxiety when you write rather than, be excited and see as your development.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a cycle that's never ending.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you've got the right measures in place and you know what your trigger points are, you can work with imposter syndrome to motivate yourself to move on to the next level, because it is a part of development. It can be in the workplace when you start your career and you have your review, your first ever review with HR or your manager, and they tell you, oh, you need to work on A, B, C, D. It's either you drop and you never go up, or you have a moment of, oh my gosh, this is too much, I can't do it. But then you pick yourself up and you keep it moving. So that's in a simple way, I think that's imposter syndrome, if that makes sense.
So in the terms of how you explained this imposter syndrome, I guess most of us would be suffering from it. So how do you think is the best way to get out of it? Like, we know we are going through it, then how we can come out of it?
The first thing I would say is be honest with yourself. That's number one. And I would say be truthful, which is number two. Two different things depending on how you see them. And then third one is have an action plan in terms of how you manage your emotions in terms of internal and external. So the truth part is, if you state what it is, when I'm working with my students, in terms of mentoring, I ask them to write a SWOT analysis of themselves, your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Know them. Be realistic. You don't have to share it with me. And then do the external SWOT analysis as well. Once you've got those two, you can see what is what from either side. And then do a pestle. I know this is all business stuff, but it works for body as well in terms of the physical being. Once you know all of those things, whatever anybody utters to you, you are able to react from truth, being realistic internally and externally. So it doesn't harm you to a point where you can't get back up, because you are aware and you have the emotional intelligence to say, this is the truth, this is my weakness, this is my opportunity, this is my threat. So how I react can take me to the next level, or it can push me back 10 steps. So I hope that makes sense.
So as you said that being honest and being truthful are two different things. So are they really different or are they same? And if they are different, then how?
It depends on the individual, because, for example, culture, right? I have two cultures. I have the background, which is African parents. That's my culture. I have UK culture, right? So if I'm going to be truthful, which culture am I following? Because that affects me, right? If I'm going to be honest, because my behavior when I'm in Africa is different, and I'm in the culture, not necessarily the continent, is different. And how I react to things is different. When I move over to my British self, again, it's different how I react. And when I move into the unknown zone, whereby, for example, if I went to Africa right now, I wouldn't fit in. When I go into the world of work, I'm seen as a Black African, so I don't fit in. So I have to have another pot here. That again affects me. So in terms of truthfulness and being honest, speaking to the man in the mirror, you have to understand the words and where they link into, and then understand the reactions in all these situations from the internal, because the battle is internal before you can actually accept the battle that's outside. That's what I mean by that the truthfulness and the honesty is different because of all these things that I'm dealing with, which is
Mm-hmm.
three things
Mm-hmm.
before I can deal with you, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
No, that's fine. I tell you, I had a similar thing. Like when I was doing my full-time PhD, when I was with my
Mhm.
in my lab, for me, it was like maintaining three personalities at once. Like when
Good
I
job.
am, yes, like when I'm with my guide, I have a different kind of personality. That
Mhm.
Chandan thinks like something else, that Chandan behaves like something else, and that is the difference. When I'm at my job,
Mhm.
then I have a different personality to, go ahead and show to everybody. But when I'm at my house, then I have my third personality. So that is the moment which actually, kind of confused me. Like, okay, how to react? Because each personality has its own needs. Each
Yeah.
personality needs to behave in a certain way according to the situation. So
Yeah.
that kind of actually confused me so many times. Is that
No,
also an imposter syndrome?
so that one is just it affects your ability to reason and to react, and it can weigh on your mental health, and it does have a link to
Mm,
imposter syndrome, like you've just said. So I've spoke of the African culture, which is home. And then I've spoke of the British, which is out there, and I'm seeing it in a different light to what I think I am, which is I'm just a human being, global citizen, hello. And then I've
mm,
got this one where I don't fit in. So the dietary needs in terms of food as well, when I'm with the African crew, right, we can chew our bones, we can eat mutton with bones.
mm.
When I'm with my British crew, oh my gosh, you're eating meat with a bone?
You need to
It's like,
behave in a separate way in each of these three things.
yes. And then with my PI and my supervisors, so if they give me any feedback, going back to explain your to answer your question, my parents, they've always taught me if someone's older than you by an hour, you treat them with respect like
Mm,
you're older. So you don't just say whatever you feel like saying. Whereas now with my PIs or supervisor, if they were Caucasian, I'm allowed to express how I feel,
mm,
which to my parents, they'll be like, you're so rude. But here, I have that legal right to say how I feel, what I think. I have rights, human
mm,
rights. When I go back to the Africa side there, I have no human rights. Know yourself, be humble, think before you speak, assess things. When I go into the unknown world, I don't know where I belong
mm.
and I'm just confused. So when I get feedback from my parents, for example, confusion, when I get feedback this side, I don't know how to react sometimes. And it's like you need that balance. That's why I said about truthfulness, being honest, understanding the internal. Because once you understand that you're already imbalanced, it's easier for you to receive or push back what's external, be it words, be it body functions, reactions. You know, some people just roll their eyes. If I'm from Africa, the African side, if someone's rolling their eyes, it's rude. Whereas if I'm chilling with my Caucasians, like, oh, attitude problem. And you know how we've got the joke to say, this is my BITCH resting face. If I'm with Africa, what's wrong with you? Fix yourself. When I come here, oh, it's my BITCH face. I'm asking. When I go over there, I'm just confused, like, what the hell's going on here, people? So it's like having the character, because character weighs more, so that you're not affected by all of these systematic approaches you have to follow, if that makes sense.
Got your point. Got your point. So I have this question, like, what you think about it? Please tell me. When you are with your supervisor, I'm coming back to that point of honesty and truthfulness. When you are with
Mhm.
your supervisor, at that time, would you like to be honest or would you like to be truthful?
So I go with both.
Mm,
I'm honest
mm,
and I'm truthful. The reason being, I want my supervisor or supervisors to
Mm,
know me as a person and to understand that there's a labyrinth internally that's
mhm,
going on. So if I'm feeling like, oh, confused, I will say I am confused because it's better for me to express myself and also state the fact that maybe when I walk away in 5 minutes, I'll be okay. It's just I'm overwhelmed right now. Give me 10, I'll be fine because I know myself. And
mhm.
they have a better, I would like to think we have, I don't know, ooh, I like to think we have a really good relationship because they're honest with me and I'm honest back in that sense. And I'm truthful with myself in terms of what I present to them. And I'm truthful in terms of how I react to what they present to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense actually. It does. It does. So have you ever encountered a very difficult guide, like who's difficult to handle? Like a guide whose reactions can change within a second.
In the world of work, I have worked with that.
Mm,
Um, so that's what pushed me really to have a stable character
mhm,
in the sense of when I started working, I don't know if you've done the color schemes, to understand if you're empathetic, you're like, I used to be a green when I first started my career, then it moved
mhm,
to a blue
mhm,
and then it moved to a red.
mhm,
So now I'm a red and a blue, which means I'm empathetic and I'm a director. I direct
mhm,
things, literally. And so therefore, having worked with people who are brat over the span of 7 to 8 years, it's enabled me to build my character
mhm,
based on truthfulness and
mhm,
being honest and understanding that, just because I've just been with my parents who say I can't react when someone's being rude because it's wrong, I
mhm,
should take the abuse at work.
mhm,
So now I know, okay, there are policies and procedures, there is a law, abuse is abuse. I don't have to take it just because you're older than me. I have to choose my words wisely, not react to the situation because again, I've realized that I'm brown, with stereotype. Oh, she's too aggressive. So I have to be aware in terms of how I react, how I phrase my statement and whether I choose to react because if I need to gain experience in that job, I don't want to be managed out of the business. I need
mhm,
to manage myself. That's why I said it's the honesty, the truthfulness that allows you to go further.
mhm.
Whether that's right or wrong, maybe there's psychologists somewhere who say, oh, no, that's bad. But that's just my opinion. The fact that I've realized that I'm brown,
Mhm.
there's the culture, there's the reality, and then there's the unknown zone, and there's the brown skin and how I react and
Mhm.
how it's perceived by the wider audience as well.
So one of the things that I really liked is how honest you are with everything that you have in your mind. That's really thing. I really appreciate that. That's so
So
good.
you better buy my book.
Okay, so as I've seen your YouTube channel and your LinkedIn and even your Twitter, you have for so long invited other researchers for a discussion. So
Mhm.
after having so many discussions, what is that one common thing that you saw in all of them?
That they all want to share their research. Like every guest that's
Mm,
ever come on PhD Hard Talk, when, before you start filming, as you know, we had our chat. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk about my research. They are
mm,
excited to share their knowledge because as we know that you type it up, you're unsure if people are reading it. I mean, the stats sometimes with certain papers, you know, they're really low, others are really high. So it's like the excitement to say, I can talk about 3 or 4 papers, the one that didn't get that much citing and the one that got a lot, and people get to see the brains, the face. Who is that person? It's me. So
Mm.
that's what I get. That's the commonality. Yeah, that's the right
Mm.
word. Mhm.
And on a personal level for you,
Uh-huh.
how has those discussions been helpful for you?
So personal, I would say I think I have friends. You guys
Mm.
don't know it at home. And I think they are my friends. And I feel like from most of the conversations and, you know, the WhatsApp messages that we've sent to each other, I feel when I have a down moment, I can literally text and I'll get a response back that will push me further.
Mhm.
That's one thing in terms of networking. So I have that safety net because as you know, in research, you're by yourself constantly and you feel
Mhm.
really lonely at times. And sometimes you feel really overwhelmed with your research itself, and to have somebody that you can talk to that's done something that's really isolating, and it's the, you know, they share what they done and how it worked. So
Mhm.
it's a nice feeling in that sense. So I'd like to say that's what I've gained from it, if that
So
makes sense.
yeah, it does make sense. It actually makes sense because in my channel also I have done some podcast with those from the research community, and this is something that I have also observed, that everybody wants to talk about their work. They want to share about what they have done. That
Mhm.
is a very good thing. But I have this question in my mind. I have this question in my mind for so long. Literally
Mhm.
everybody is doing YouTube content now. Like some, like if not YouTube, either they're writing posts on LinkedIn or some other videos.
Yeah.
Either it be a software developer or it be a CEO or somebody like this. But
Mm.
if we have a look at our research community, then most of the scientists, they are not on some platforms like this, that they don't come up and have their voice, or to state it in a nice way, that most of that why scientists are not YouTubers, like those who will come out, talk about their stuff and share those things. So why do you think this is the case?
Um, in my opinion, I think we've already touched on it. It's a tough journey. You have to publish. You have to work on your own research. You have to attend conferences, and with each milestone, there's a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
which is imposter syndrome. And then
Mm-hmm.
second one is, will I have a job when I finish? So when you think of you know, or whether a postdoc or what have you, when you think of the time it takes for you and I to produce the content that we produce, it's a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
A PhD is a full-time job and some on top of it. Whether you're chilling with your friends, you're still thinking about your research. Whether you're laid in bed, you're having dreams and you're waking up at 3 in the morning, that is amazing. I need to make sure that's documented. You know, you wake up from your sleep because it's your baby essentially.
Yes, yes.
So to commit to a YouTube channel, podcast, or you know another you know, is it blogs, vlogs? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's time consuming, and I personally think that's probably a reason why. But what I've realized is on Twitter, a lot of PhD or postdoc students have started doing the MySpace, and they interact and they share
Mm-hmm.
and do their downfalls, upfalls. So I think this PhD chat voice, postdoc voice, academic chatter, just to name a few that
Mm-hmm.
I've seen. And there's Ashraf as well, who's in Malaysia. He writes blogs and he has a podcast where people go on his podcast. So it's starting to push forward in that sense in terms of the amount of people that are pushing. And there's I forgot her name now. She's in Germany and she looks at the environmental stuff. I don't know if that's the right word, but she does the LinkedIn Live. And she talks about, the environment, and she has different practitioners from different parts of the world whereby they share their knowledge and expertise. So I think maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll have a lot more. But one thing I've realized is that in India, there's a lot of students that actually are on YouTube and do talk about research. So in India, I'd like to think it's a thing. If that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So coming back to what you do now, you are being an HR. You have been in the field of HR for 7 years. What is your one takeaway after being an HR for 7 years that can work for a PhD student?
Okay, so I'm still in HR. I can't depart from HR because I love HR. So that's number one. Number two is I would like to say, and I would share this because I've seen some of the information on Twitter whereby individuals complain about their supervisors and they have high expectations that the supervisor should manage them a certain way. But one thing I've learned, and through coaching and mentoring, when I mentor my students as well, I always say, when you walk in for an interview, as much as they interview you, you need to interview them back. Look at the signs. If it's red, run. If it's amber, run. If it's green, take it. Don't just accept the scholarship when you can tell that our personalities are clashing. It's 4 years. That's a marriage. You have to cry together, hug, have arguments, disagree, make up, live life, and the rest is history. But if you're already not seeing eye to eye, don't just go for the opportunity because they're the only ones who've given it to you. Be realistic with yourself, going back to being truthful, honest, knowing internal and external, because you gaslight each other and it'll never work. And you've had stories whereby someone will go on Twitter and say, well, they haven't spoken to me in a year. I don't know what to do. But it's because you've gaslighted each other and the relationship is non-existent. Someone has to say, I'm no longer interested at some point. So I don't know if that makes sense in terms of a response.
So, since last 1 or 2 years, due to this pandemic, most of the things have switched to remote. Most of the things are being done from home. Most of the work is online. So, how do you think this remote stuff has affected the field of research?
So it depends on your discipline, if you have to be in the labs or etc., and how many people are around there, or if you're more of reading and literally comparing texts. I think it's different in terms of the feeling, but as a researcher, because you're always alone, so I feel that the difference the major difference is you're not set with your supervisor or PI or advisor face to face. It's more of online. And when you do attend the master classes, to look at research, publications, etc., guest lecturers, it's all online. So if your personality requires you to be amongst people, then yes, you will be affected. But if your personality is like mine, if I can get it online and I don't have to move to my house, in the house, I love it. I really love it. And I've been working from home. So everything is great for me because I don't have to use my fuel. I don't have to walk unnecessarily. That's why I've gained weight, started going to the gym. But, it's like everything is within and I can think, I can focus. I've got my whiteboards, everything is working for me. Whereas for someone else, they yearn for people to be around them, to be social. Whereas I was an only child for a hot sec. So staying by myself is like the best time, because when I go out and I'm around people, it's like I'm exhausted after 2 hours. I need to go back home. I miss my space. I need my me time. So it's different for different individuals, and I can't have an answer that will cover everybody because we're all unique and wonderfully made, aren't we?
I tell you, in my case, it's the other way. I am
Okay.
somebody who likes to talk to 10 people every day. Like in my workplace and even in my lab, I
Yeah.
have always been that person who talks to everybody, even if that
Wow.
person is from some other lab or from some other discipline, they will be knowing me. So in my case, whenever I see this online thing, and I'm like, but I don't like the face to face. Like even for the podcast, my initial thoughts was to sit with a person,
Mm-hmm.
but thanks to the pandemic, we cannot do that, and everything is being done on the Zoom and the online stuff, all of those things.
I
So
could have been in India.
yeah, yes, and I would have make you drink tea, the Punjabi tea.
I'm
One
sure
is
it's the
the
one with cinnamon
I'm sorry, what?
inside. Is it the one with the cinnamon inside?
Have
The
you
spice.
heard? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because we add so many things in the tea that it has a different taste from what it
Ooh,
was. So
I
coming
love
back
that
to the
tea.
podcast, coming back to what we were trying to discuss in the podcast.
Yeah.
So as you said that there are so many researchers who are coming up with their content on these virtual spaces. So
Mhm.
how do you see this thing in future? Like, what do you think as, how, where this thing will reach in like 5 to 10 years, in the next 5 to 10 years?
I would like to think there'll be a lot more apps, educational apps,
Mm-hmm.
for academics that will cover a global spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
because from one of my guests, I asked the question, do you think education in terms of getting a PhD and, getting a scholarship can break the poverty cycle? And his response was yes.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, I believe that, in the next 5 to 10 years, everybody's starting to realize for free movement,
Mm-hmm.
education does enhance that, number
Mm-hmm.
one, for yourself and for your family back home. So if you can be in full-time education and send $50 and that helps to feed your mom and dad and send your siblings to school, why not?
It's good. It's
I'm
totally
going.
great. Yes.
I'm on my way. So I
Mm-hmm.
think also with the knowledge and the expertise that we have as scientists, we'll be able to build platforms that will ensure that this message is shared freely, globally, and people in terms of scientists can collaborate. And also, if I wanted to do ethnographic research, maybe in the Amazon forest, I can liaise with someone that's done that with the indigenous group, get myself in there, stay there for 2 years, finish my research, work with them collaboratively. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
got that word right. And ensure that I publish something that has substance, and maybe do it in a documentary form if they
Mm-hmm.
allow me to, and then type it up after. So it changes the way we see research and the way we share research, because it's not everybody that can read for 10
Mm-hmm.
hours
Mm-hmm.
Some people prefer to watch. That's how they learn. So from that perspective, I think in the next 5 years, the academic side, based on the scientists themselves and how they feel and where they want to be, I think there'll be a lot more opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
consultancy firms, all of that stuff from an entrepreneurial perspective as well.
So coming on to the last question of this
Oh,
podcast, um, you meet somebody who is just about to start his PhD, who is just about to
okay.
start his or her research journey.
Uh-huh.
Out of all of things that you have faced, what advice would you like to give to that person?
Going back to our conversation, be honest, truthful with yourself. Because the PhD journey is like a road with potholes. You never know when you're going to sink in, because sometimes you don't see the potholes. And you might get a tire that will just burst. So you have to be able to hold yourself flat, like 4 flat tires on a dusty road full of potholes. Like you have to stand still. And sometimes it's smooth sailing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you never know. It's a roller coaster ride that's up and down. But I think the potholes on a road, they help to illustrate in terms of how tough and how smooth it can be. So being truthful and honest and also patient with yourself will help you. Again, in terms of supervisor, understand that it's a relationship, but don't push your buttons. Remember, they're a human being. So if you abuse them,
Mhm.
at some point they'll wash their hands. So you have to have manners at least, and also manners with yourself and respect yourself, your dignity, like
Mhm.
standard, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Hopefully that makes sense.
yes, yes. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. It was really nice to talk to you. Even I had to learn so many things. It's really
Oh,
good for
okay.
me. Thanks so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me and thank you for contacting me. And hopefully what I said makes sense. And I hope I haven't offended anyone because I told you I'm a red, so I'm quite tough. My
Mm.
love is tough. It's not really soft. I'm not for everybody. So yeah.